there are 5 lenses. We're kind of calling them themes. I think that probably makes more sense. But in effect, I'm seeing them as 5 kind of different windows that you can look in to around the best practice for how one communicates analysis. And they're informed from the best practice research that we did external to National Highways, but they certainly have been adapted and shaped to kind of fit what we found from the stakeholder engagement work. So they're all of equal importance, but this one is foundational. So the Know Your Audience one, it's number 1 for a reason. The others are not really numbered in order, just some kind of vague logic of some of the steps you might go through in the process you go through, but this one's absolutely critical, and it's the foundation stone for the other 4. So each of the 5 areas reflect a particular area of expertise, and it takes years of, I mean, for most of them, there are specialist communities looking at that kind of stuff, not necessarily to do with highways, just generally in terms of a topic, in terms of a skill set. It actually takes years of practice to do any one of them well, let alone trying to learn 5 and figure out how to interact with 5. So there is, in the guide, you'll find there's a little like learn more section, which gives references to books and websites and podcasts where you can learn a little bit more. So the purpose of today is really a bit of a quick stop tour. If you haven't seen it, it gives you a sense of what's in there. If you have seen it, it might help raise some questions. And remember that when we finish this tour, and you'll get a little comfort break, your question to answer is, okay, which one of these do I think I want to work on? Or it might be more than one, you know, but don't bite off more than you can chew. You know, think about something practical that you can take with. So we've said knowing your audience is a vital prerequisite. I think this quote kind of sums it up quite nicely. And it's actually focusing, it's saying that the audience's agenda drives the analysis process. So the intelligence cycle underscores that the audience must be the starting and endpoints for that analysis. And it's this expectation of understanding them and them understanding you. So in the stakeholder engagement, what we discovered is this does actually happen, and people were quite effusive and grateful, both from an analytical side and from a customer analysis side, where they'd had this opportunity to interact and to collaborate to define actually what the analysis needed to do and why. So from an analysis side, they said, oh, there's this question that I didn't understand, like what they wanted, it didn't seem to make any sense. So we kind of probed and went backwards and forwards, and finally we got something we understand. And from an audience or customer analysis side, there were several people that had the benefit of this, and they said it was really helpful because it helped us to shape our understanding and made us think about what we really wanted. So this is saying it's absolutely critical, and we have to find ways to do that. There's a tool here, which I'm thinking there'll probably be some guide or kind of steps that you can work through, kind of like a worksheet for creating this thing called the key intelligence question. Effectively, it's creating a brief, but it's adding a kind of analytical tradecraft element to that so that it makes it more accessible. And it's basically, think of it as a kind of worksheet for that interaction between the analyst and the customer or audience of analysis. So that's one of the things I'm thinking we'll need to support the guidance that's actually in the guide. So there are these 3 steps. This is just saying knowing why audience matters. The main bulk of it is the process of agreeing that brief, and what you then do with it, and we'll see on the next slide how that kind of feeds through. And then the third one we're going to take a quick look at, it did come up in the scoping study, is how you prepare the data to support the audience needs, and we'll take a quick look at that. So in terms of developing the key intelligence question, putting that in context, blob or bluff, I think there's a comment in there, it's something like CAD needs to be more bluff, not blob. in the way that we do this. So there's the process of creating a key intelligence question, but the way in which, why that's needed and the way in which you answer it is to give that bottom line up front. Is to, and we touched on this, it came up several times actually in the stakeholder engagement. So that the left hand, the blob, it focuses attention on the writer. It's the kind of the process that you've gone through, the thinking that you've gone through, and you end up with a conclusion at the end. But if you flip that on its head, and you focus the attention on what the audience needs, then you give them the key answer to that key intelligence question, and then you work down and provide more of the detail to support the arguments. Still quite short, but it's the focus of that. So knowing how to develop this key intelligence question and getting to a point where okay, that is now what I'm gonna go away and analyze, and I know what I know what the question is, and I know what I need to do to help inform that answer. And you'll see this crop back up, this response to the key intelligence question in the other sections, but this is saying you need to do that, basically. And then let me just go down. Yeah. So for this one, you might think, why she's gone mad? Why is she showing us a screen with NHS dentists and BBC on it? Just in the way that we need to write differently, so bluff versus blob, we also need to prepare the data in a different way for communication purposes. So we need to select that data and present it in context. Still need to reference its source. But this particular case study from the BBC Shared Data Unit gives a useful best practice reference point to explore. So the team have developed a repository for the BBC's outreach programme with local news reporters, and they research and provide the story, and they then provide the kind of templatized version of that so that local and regional news partners can take that, cut, slice and dice the data to show relative to their area, and that yet they can still reference back to the overall core story. So it's probably quite hard to see, but this orange thing here, what's the story? You've then got the summary of the background information. You've then got the summary of what does the data show, and that's a great example of the kind of summary tables, which we've seen. We've started to see that in the Smart Motorway stock take report in the appendices. We've started to see some of that stuff there, albeit this is online and that's in a report, but that doesn't necessarily matter. And in this case, in a story context, what do the experts say? So this there's a link to this in the Quick Start Guide. And if you want to explore this a little bit more, it just gives you, it gives you a frame of reference for how something completely different to what we do is looking at this and thinking how, in this case, it's a kind of intermediary audience. It's a kind of people that are going to take this and work with the data, but we can still learn from that. And that I think is a useful thing.